All right. Okay, we got another video. This wasn't requested. There were several of you who were talking about just how to do basic math functions, adding and subtracting, those type of things in R. While it's not too difficult, I want to make sure I just give you a quick example and maybe show a couple of the more interesting things that you can do with it. So if you haven't already tried, just so you know, R has obviously it can do all the statistical under the hood, which means it does do basic math, right? So if I just open up in a code chunk and just say, 7 plus 5 and run that, it will just output the answer, right? Similarly, if I say x equals 6 and I say y equals 10, and then I say x plus y, it will go ahead and add those as well, right? I can also put in a new variable and say z equals that. It calculates it, but just stores it as z. You can see over here on the side that now z equals 16. So I could use that variable to do other things. The reason that that is useful is there are some problems that we do that maybe require a setup, and you would maybe use a calculator versus R, and you can still set those up by setting variables and solving, right? So, for example, let's say that I had a probability question that was something about a Bayes theorem, right? So let's say I had the situation where I have something like this, right? Where probability of A, and remember you can name variables with dots in there. You can't do spaces, but you can use dots in that. So if I say probability of A is 0.4, probability of B is 0.5, and the probability of B given A is 0.2, right? So this is the idea of just setting up your variables. And one of the nice things is, just like anything else, I could set up my problem in here and say, okay, well then I want to calculate the probability of B and A, right? Which I just know is this equation right here. So I can go ahead and run that. It doesn't print it out, it stores it over here. You can see on the right that it's 0.08. If I wanted it to output to the screen, I could always just write the probability of B, and A, and if I just type it by itself, it will output it. So there is my answer. And the nice thing is, once that's all stored, I can do whatever type of other things I want. Maybe now that I have this, I want to calculate the probability of A given B, which I would do with Bayes' theorem, right? So I can write it in here and say, well, the probability of A given B is the probability of this, and that is Bayes' theorem, and I can run it and solve it. The other nice thing is I can save this. If I want to keep this as a cheat sheet for myself, I can add some comments into it. Says, this is use Bayes theorem, right? So now I know that that is how Bayes theorem is. So later, if I want to solve a different problem, all I have to do is put in the different probabilities of A, B, and the probability of B given A, and it will solve all this over again, right? So while you can't do this by hand or on a calculator, sometimes setting up a problem in R can be handy, because then later you can change it to whatever you want. The other reason that this might be handy is that I can do equations on sets, or my variables in the set, right? So if I go back up to this cadet file that I had loaded before, right? Here's a kind of preview of it. As a reminder, it's just made up data of some cadet social security number, squadron, gender, GPA, and major GPA. We've already seen before that if I said, hey, what is the mean of cadets $sign GPA, I can do that, and it will go ahead and give me the answer, right? The average GPA is apparently 3.01 from my made-up data. We also, just like I was talking about now, we could store that into a variable, say average.gpa equals that, and now it doesn't output it, but you can see it's stored over here on the right. The nice thing is, once I have that, I can use that in my calculations, right? And I can make a new row. So for example, I could say cadets $sign, and I could say, let's call it GPA.diff, right? I'm going to say that's the difference of your GPA from the average GPA. It's not a variable that exists now, but I just added it to cadets by calling it there. I'm going to say it equals the cadets GPA, so cadets $sign GPA, oh, not their gender, their GPA, minus the average .gpa, which is just over here. I could have just, instead of writing that variable, I could have written that directly. But now what it's going to do is it's going to go for every average, or for every GPA, it's going to subtract off the average GPA and make this new column. So I can go ahead and run this. It doesn't do anything. It doesn't look like it's doing anything because it affected the data set. If I rerun this data set, you can now see I have this new column that is a calculated column that is showing me the difference. These are in order. So these are, I'm sorry, that these are all low GPAs, but as we go through, we got to see that difference is up. And by the time we get here, we see people who are above the average, right? So that is just a couple of examples of how you can do basic math functions in R, how they work, and more importantly, how you can use them to calculate new statistics on your observations within a data set. As always, if you guys have any questions, shoot me a message and I can answer them. Or if you have a particular video that you'd like to see made based off of this, let me know and I will do that. Otherwise, I will see you guys in the next video.